How heavy is this glass of water? Anyone? Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. Anybody else? It depends on how long you hold it. You see, if I hold it for a couple of seconds, no problem. But if I hold it for an hour, then I'll begin to experience pain. And if I hold it for a day, a week, or a month, I'll have to be hospitalized. And the same is true of any burden that you hold on to. Anger, negativity, stress, pride, and guilt. I submit to you that these emotions, they imprison you. They put you in a place what I call the cage of rage. Let me give you an illustration as to what I'm talking about. Several years ago, I got into an argument with another speaker. And it really got heated. A couple people interceded, and they said, hey, why don't you guys take a couple of weeks and talk about this on the phone? And I said, sure, absolutely. And I thought, cooler minds would prevail. Anyway, we get on the telephone, and the first thing, let's call him Napoleon. The first thing Napoleon says to me on the phone, he says, Ed, this entire situation is your fault. You and your whole team, you are to blame. I'm thinking, what? So let me get this straight. If me and my team, if we are completely responsible for this situation, that means that you and your team, you have no fault at all. Is that correct? And he said, yeah. Well, with logic like that, Napoleon, there's absolutely no reason to continue this conversation. And I hung up. And I got to tell you, I was very, very upset. I was upset for several different reasons. Number one, as it's been mentioned in my introduction, my temper it's my kryptonite. You see, I grew up in Chicago's rough side. I was the runt of the litter. And this was a tool that actually protected me. I had a reputation. You don't want to mess with him. Man, he's got a bad temper. But have you ever had a strength turn into a weakness? You see, the tool that held me as a child, as an adult, it had no place. It contributed to my divorce. I lost a 6-figure executive position. And as some of you heard several years ago in my keynote, Manage Things, Lead People, I got arrested for being in a bar fight. At that point in time, I said to myself, I need to fix this. So I spent thousands of dollars and literally thousands of hours trying to get better in this area. I even taught a class on how to deal with difficult people. Clearly, I needed to be one of the students. In my conversation with Napoleon, I had the intellectual know-how. However, I did not have the emotional do-how. There's a friend of ours who knew us best, who knew the both of us. I called her up. Let's call her Yoda. I got on the phone and I said, Yoda, I need your help. I explained the circumstances, how things had gotten out of control. We met in person. We didn't get along. We tried it on the phone. We didn't get along. I need your help. Would you be willing to negotiate a truce between the two of us? And she said, no. And she said to me, Ed, is it true that you don't want things to be this way? And I said, absolutely, I don't want things to be this way. And she said, in that case, what you need to do is to take 100% mea culpa. Now I remember thinking to myself, I'm a member of Cherry Creek Toastmasters in Denver, Colorado. And so far, we had not had that as the word of the day. I said, what do you mean? She says, mea culpa, what that means is to take full responsibility. It's my fault. I'm sorry. It's my bad. Everyone, I like you to take your hand across your heart and just say, my bad. And I remember thinking to myself, I need a new Yoda. This Yoda is broken. Maybe her Yoda card is expired. Because the truth of the matter is, that's the last thing I wanted to do. But then she said to me the phrase that pays, and it grabbed my attention. She said, Ed, By doing this, it'll take the angry wind out of his sails. He won't have anything to talk about. The other thing that will happen is you'll be able to let go and move on. It's for you. It's not for him. I knew she was right. So I hopped on my computer and I typed an apology to Napoleon. I said, Napoleon, I take 100% responsibility for both situations. It's my fault that this whole situation's gotten completely out of hand. I'm so sorry for hanging up on you. Please accept my apology. And if you don't, I'll understand. 2 minutes later, I get an email from Napoleon. And it said the following. He said, Ed, of course, you're not 100% responsible for the circumstances. I only said this to push your buttons, to get under your skin, and to win the argument. It was childish. Please accept my apology. I couldn't believe it. The only thing I wanted was acknowledgement of the fact that we both made mistakes, we both made errors, and it worked within seconds. Clearly, her Yoda card had not been expired. So let's look at this little story and look at some lessons. So lesson number 1 is to find yourself a Yoda. Find yourself a Yoda. Another story with regard to a Yoda. About 13 years ago, my son was 16 years old. He had just gotten his first car. I got a phone call from the police. And it's the phone call that no parent ever wants to have. I saw on caller ID, it was from the police. The police officer said, "Are you Edward Tate?" "Yes." "The father of David Tate." Your heart just drops. And immediately I said, "Is my son okay? Is he all right?" He says, "Yes, sir, he is. He's been arrested for shoplifting." What? Shoplifting? Are you kidding? David Stephen Tate. Yes, sir. A sophomore at Grandview High School. Yes, sir. About 5'10". A good-looking kid, looks just like his father. Sir, the only thing I can confirm is that he's 5'10". Yeah, that sounds like him. You can keep him. Mr. Tate, that's not how it works. We need you to pick him up here at the mall. At the mall, they actually have something called a substation. It is actually a miniature police station in the basement of the mall. I assured the police officer, "Sir, if I pick him up now, the next person you'll be arresting will be me. I'm sure child abuse will be involved." He says, "Sir, do you realize that you're talking to a police officer?" Yes. I was married at the time, and my wife was in Chicago visiting family members. So I get into the car, I drive to the mall. I have no idea what to do. All of a sudden it occurred to me, I have a relative. His name is O.C., as in Orange County. His son, Michael, had done everything possible. I mean, you name it, Michael did it. Now, today, Michael is a contributing person in society. But when he was a teenager, he was a hellraiser. I said to myself, if there's anybody who knows what to do, it would be O.C. So I'm in my car, I call up O.C., I says, "O.C., I need your help. David's been arrested for shoplifting. What should I do?" And he said to me, "Ed, what's your favorite restaurant?" Now, I thought we had a bad cell phone signal. So I get out of my car, I stand up, I said, "O.C., David's been arrested for shoplifting. Can you hear me now?" "I can hear you, Ed. What's your favorite restaurant?" I looked out in the parking lot. There was a P.F. Chang's out there. I just yelled out, "P.F. Chang's. What's that got to do with David being arrested?" "Ed, I can hear the anger in your voice. If you talk to your son right now, you'll say something that you'll regret for the rest of your life. I want you to go over to P.F. Chang's. By the way, they have some amazing Kung Pao chicken. I want you to go over to that restaurant. How long does it take you to drive from the mall, from your house to the mall?" "About 15 minutes. David knows that it takes 15 minutes. I want you to take 3 hours to have that meal. I don't care if you don't eat a thing. You can order anything on the menu, but you cannot order alcohol. You see, that'll give you some time to settle down, and that'll give him time to think about what he's done. And every minute that goes by, it'll seem like it's a decade. That's step number one. Step number two, your job when you do pick him up is not to discuss this topic tonight. No matter what you do, your job is to get him home safely and send him to his room. Do not discuss this tonight. Ed, I know you. I know about your temper. You'll say something that you'll regret. Your job is to get him home. Do not discuss this issue tonight. The third thing, as you send him off to his room, you're to tell him he's to think about what his punishment should be. That'll give him something to think about the entire night. Now, he's going to suggest something ridiculous, like take away my car for 9 months. Now, think about this. If you take away the car for 9 months, who's going to be the chauffeur? 3 weeks, a month will be more than fine. That's your mission, Ed. And that's what I did. I went to P.F. Chang's. I hung out there for 3 hours. I went over to the mall, went to the substation. Who knew there was actually a police station in the basement of a mall? Turn to your neighbors and tell them, who knew? Anyway, the police officer who walks up to me, he says, Mr. Tate, I need to share something with you. Your son, who just became a starter on the football team, this was part of a hazing ritual. His fellow teammates told him to come over here and to steal something. He's a good kid. He's been very remorseful. Out of the 40 to 50 children we arrest per day, he is by far been the most well-behaved and the nicest. Mr. Tate, I can see the anger on your face. Please do me a favor. Take your son home. Don't discuss this issue tonight. You have the entire weekend to discuss it. You'll say something that you'll regret, sir. Take your son home. So anyway, I see my son David, and we're walking along, and I look at him. I don't even want to talk to you. Anyway, as we're getting into the car, I asked him, what did you steal? He said, cologne. Cologne? By the way, here's something else I had done prior to getting there. I went online to see how much money he had. We have a joint Visa, MasterCard account, savings, and checking. He had over $2,000 in his account. I need to start charging him rent. What did you steal? He said, cologne. Where from? JCPenney. We were just outside of JCPenney. I said, come on. So we go inside JCPenney. I asked for the store manager. They take us upstairs. The store manager introduces himself. He says, Sir, what can I do for you? I says, my name's Ed Tate. This is my son, David. David, tell him why we're here. And he breaks down in tears, and he starts crying. And between the tears and the stammering and the stuttering, he tells him what happens. And he apologizes to the store manager. And I said, would you explain to my son what happens when people steal? He says, Mr. Tate, ironically enough, he had a computer printout on his table. It was that big. He says, this is the amount of pilferage we've had this year. It's over $1 million. We pass this on to the consumers. I said, thank you, sir. We go home. I execute the rest of the plan. I send him upstairs. I tell him to think about his punishment. The following morning, we get together, and it's just like OC said. He recommended everything short of the death penalty. He was going to wash my car. You know, he wanted to sell the car. I told him, here's what we're going to do. You don't have access to your car for a month. You have to get to school on your own. You have to get to practice on your own. You have to get to your job on your own. When it comes time for us to take care of the situation in court, you'll have to pay all the fees. My wife came home that afternoon, and I told her what happened. And she says, I'm going to kill him. And I said, honey, what's your favorite restaurant? Find yourself a Yoda. Next, take 100% mea culpa. That is, it's my fault, it's my bad. By the way, there's no such thing as a fair fight. Napoleon did what he was supposed to do. I've often heard people say to themselves, oh, it wasn't fair. Guess what? It's called a fight. Napoleon did what he was supposed to do. There's no such thing as a fair fight. Find a way to care. This comes from Keith Ferrazzi, who's the author of Never Eat Alone and Who's Got Your Back. This is wisdom from his father. And if you really want to break a stalemate, what you need to do is find a way to care about the other individual. Next, let go and move on. So here's what I'd like you to do, is I'd like you to hold out your hands like this. And the phrase is, let go and move on. What's the phrase? Let go and move on. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to let go and move on. Please, show one of your neighbors. Let go and move on. It's for you. Forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other individual. The longer you hold on to something, remember the glass, the more it harms you, not the other person. Here's a homework assignment. And it's how to deal with any burden that you carry. I'm going to use anger as an example. And by the way, this is for your workbooks. For those of you who have the workbooks, and I forgot what the page number is, the first answer is 100% mea culpa. Culpa. Set your pride aside. The missing word is pride. There's no such thing as a fair fight. Is that page 40? Page 40. Missing word is fair fight. Number 4, find a way to care. Number 5, let go and move on. And then finally, find a mentor or a Yoda, someone who's cool under pressure. 100% mea culpa. Set your pride aside. The missing word is pride. No such thing as a fair fight. Find a way to care. Let go and move on. And find a mentor, a Yoda, who's cool under pressure. Basically what I mean by a Yoda, if there is a weakness that you have, find someone who that's their strength. Hang out with them. I love this quote from William Bridges, who wrote a book entitled Transitions. Before you can begin something new, you have to end what used to be. There's a tool that comes from a book entitled The 3 Laws of Performance. It's called blanking the canvas. Blanking the canvas. Here are the 3 steps of blanking the canvas. Number 1, what binds and constrains is something called descriptive language. Once I had a relationship where a woman cheated. So in this case, my story, Ed's story was, you cheated. Her story was, you didn't pay attention to me. You deserved it. You cheated. You deserved it. You cheated. You deserved it. We're both describing the situation. We're both describing our perception of reality. It's not reality. The truth is somewhere in between. Are you with me? But as long as we are in this cycle of describing our stories, our versions of reality or descriptive language, this situation will never resolve itself. Are you with me? So the next step this leads to something called a default future. And the question you have to ask yourself is this: is this the future that I want? So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're stuck in descriptive language, a stalemate, is that the future that you want? Think it through to the end. And if it's not the future that you want, then what you have to do is step number 3 is to complete issues from the past. Complete issues from the past. This past summer, I almost lost a very good friend of mine. Have you ever had an experience where you had a good friend and for whatever reason life happens and they're no longer in your life and they just disappeared? Has that ever happened to you? Me, I made a choice several years ago that the people who I want to be in my life, I'm going to put energy to make sure they stay in my life. That's the choice I've made. And my friend and I, we got into this argument. To this day, I still don't know what started it. I still don't know, but we weren't talking to one another. It was crazy. And the longer we weren't talking to one another, the worse it seemed to get. And here, in terms of completing issues from the past, here are the steps of that. Step number 1 is to have what we call the completion conversation. Schedule a talk with that individual. Doesn't matter who's at fault or who's to blame. If you really want to save or preserve the relationship, what you need to do is schedule a talk. It doesn't matter who's to blame. Number 2, address what happened. Now, address only your contribution to the diminishment of the relationship. Do not bring up what they did. The moment you do that, they become defensive. Are you with me? Only talk about what you did and allow that person to vent. If they rip you one, then so be it. The big picture is to preserve the relationship, to preserve the friendship. Are you tracking with me? And then finally, step number 3 is take whatever action is necessary. Apologize. Or give up your racket. Now, a racket is, ironically enough, we are here in Las Vegas. And back in Prohibition, A racket was, you would have a storefront. Say, for example, it could be a grocery store or a flower shop. That's what's going on the outside. But back in the room, they were either gambling or they were selling alcohol. Thus the name a racket. And sometimes we as individuals, we have rackets. Wouldn't you agree? We have this outside persona, but there's something else going on in the back. I'm inviting you to let go of whatever your racket is. So here's a homework assignment for you. Homework assignment number 1. And by the way, we're skilled at holding on, but we're not skilled at letting go. Step number 1 is, and again, the goal here is to practice letting go. So here's your letting go homework. I want you to wander through your home, your garage, your drawers, your storage units, your closets, and find 25 items to throw away. These are things which no longer have any value. They're broken, they've been around the house, they fall into that category I've been meaning to. Ladies, these must be your possessions. I've played this game before. I used to get phone calls from guys. Well, Ed said that I can throw your stuff away, your things away. Step number 2, go back to your house again. This time find 25 things to give away. These are things that you can actually sell on Craigslist and make money. I don't want you to sell them. I want you to give them away. Some of you understand the value of giving, yes? Finally, I want you to go through your house one more time and find 25 items that you would never part with. What might some of those things be? Pictures, family members. There's a piece of paper on your seats, and it asks the question, what do you need to clear? So what I'd like you to do right now is take out that piece of paper and just write down one thing that you need to clear. It's your definition, you decide. What we're going to do is, after Darren's presentation, you're going to turn those in as we go to the break. So our volunteers are going to collect those. But I want you to write those down right now. Write down right now. What it is, just in one word or two, just a couple trigger words, what you need to clear. Over the weekend, Darren and myself, we're going to go to a place, and we're going to take all these items that you need to clear, and we're going to burn them. We're going to videotape it, and we're going to show you the videotape on Sunday morning. So write down what it is that you need to clear. In closing, I want to talk about one other thing that I needed to clear. I mentioned that I've been divorced, and I've had a series of relationships. And I think one of the reasons I have a series of relationships is because I was afraid of getting hurt. And because when you go through a divorce, I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's one of the most painful things you can ever go through. And then I go through another relationship, and I got hurt again. And I think what happened for me was I didn't want to feel that pain again, so I opted not to do that. And the thing I needed to clear was to trust in a relationship. I'll never forget what Whoopi Goldberg, the actress, said once. She had a highly publicized breakup. And she said the following. She says, I'm going to take the good from my previous relationships. I'm going to apply it towards my next relationship. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, I'd like to introduce you to my wife. Her name is Sarika Mohabir. Sarika, please stand. In closing, I'd like you to think of this. Healing is a choice to let go of our past hurts and grieving them. And grieving is a choice to heal the future. That's my time. Thank you very much.
Woo. And the crowd goes wild! All right. Well, isn't Ed awesome? I'm sure you just kind of teased us, and there's so much more in here that you can share with all of our great audience members and our streaming audience as well. How can we find out more about you or take some of this great knowledge home?
Good. Guys, if you could still have my same presentation up, thank you. Appreciate that. Please turn your workbooks to page 57. Last year, I created 3 new programs, 3 brand new programs. And They're telling me they'll have this up in a moment. One of them is called Guerrilla Marketing for Speakers. I've coached well over 100 solopreneurs, entrepreneurs on their businesses. And here's what I've discovered. While the vast majority of them have business plans, very few, if any of them, actually have a marketing plan. So one of the things that we teach people how to do is have a 7-step marketing plan. A marketing plan is a living, breathing document. It is what you're going to do every day, every week, every month. Here are some of the guest experts I have in this course. This was a 6-week course. A lady by the name of Heather Lutzy. She has a company called Findability. And what she does is she teaches you how to be found on the internet even though no one's ever heard of you. She just recently sold her company for several $1 million. We also have a lady by the name of Sima Dahl. Sima Dahl is an expert on social media. She shared with me one technique that so far has produced over $30,000 worth of business. Raise your hands if you're connected with me on LinkedIn. Yes? Raise your hands if you ever got an email from me saying, hey, thank you for the invitation to connect. I'm curious, why did you connect with me? Look around, look around. That technique alone has led to $30,000 worth of business. We also had a guest expert, Kathy Armilis. She gave a program yesterday where, how many of you were here yesterday? So her program, How to Rock a TED Talk. She's an expert on marketing strategy. She's also one of the guest presenters. My other program is called Train the Trainer Part 1. This is another 6-week program. These are some of the techniques. Have you seen me get audiences to do things that they normally don't do? Yes? Okay. So I'm going to teach you some of my techniques. My Yoda in this area is a lady by the name of Sarah Singanori. She's an expert on accelerated learning techniques. She's the one who initially trained me in these areas. Quick story. I have a ground level office that backs up to a greenbelt. So there are joggers and dog walkers. I'm on the call with her, and she's with as well as our other students. She's having us standing and doing all different types of exercises. The dog walkers and the joggers are going, what is this guy doing? It was absolutely amazing. It was the most fun conference call I've ever experienced. Anyone heard of this guy? He's also on the program as well. So anyway, very quickly. Guerrilla Marketing, on my website, if you check online, is $297. Train the Trainer Volume 1 is also $297. That's $594. You will not pay $594. I'm going to throw in some bonuses. I have a program called the Mentoring Map. This is basically how to jumpstart and fine-tune your small business. This is a 7-week program. It's worth $497. I haven't done this in 3 years. I'm going to throw in an hour of one-on-one coaching for the first 25 people who buy the program today. So, by the way, this includes your Champion's Edge discount, so the final price is $237. The one-on-one coaching will be for the first 25 people. So if you want the 1 hour of coaching, it's for the first 25 people, and it's only good until 9:35 today. So for those of you who are serious about this, 9:35 today, that's your deadline. That form, fill out your name, your email address, and your phone number. And we actually do not put out your credit card information. We actually have something called a swipey thing. What's it called? We have a swipey thing, and we will swipe it. Marvelous Mark.
All right. Thank you, Ed. The man, the myth, the legend. Give it up.